Well, my mother and father met each other at the Savoy Dance Hall in Harlem. I think the Savoy's like on 135th Street and Lenox, somewhere over there. The same location where Malcolm was shot at. And that's where I took my rites of passage as a teenager, 13 years old. And so my mother loved to dance. And my father was a great dancer, swing dancer. He didn't throw her through the legs and up like that, but they did that swing dance back in the day. So that's when she loved him. And then he was a man of wealth as far as she was concerned. She was on the farm. She was the only daughter of 9 daughters that left the farm and went to the city. Everybody else stayed in Louisiana. So she was looking for a husband. My mother was clear. And yeah, he was the package.
Louisiana, were you born there or were you born in?
No, I was born in Brooklyn, New York. That's my father, Alabama, my mother, Louisiana. And then they met in New York. First, she went to Washington, D.C., and there's not a lot of men there that are available. And people talk about it right now, back then and even now. And so she said, this is not a place for me. You know, she went to New York like for a moment, and she saw there was possibilities of finding a mate. So she packed up her bags. She was a secretary for the government, and she went to New York and found my father in Harlem.
What do you take from your mother, and what do you take from your father in terms of what they instilled in you?
What do I take from my mother and my father? Well, my mother, I take grace. My mother is very graceful and gracious, and she doesn't talk above almost a whisper. She's poised, and she keeps things clean and things in order. She keeps the records. She kept records for my father and his property, or their property and his business. He was an entrepreneur, had his own digital technician business. So everything was always perfection. She was about to lose the house, but she had the records. And she says, no, this is indeed our home. I don't have it like that. I'm going to get it in my mature age. So that's the grace of my mother. And my mother's devoted to the family, and I have the same devotion no matter what. And my father, being an entrepreneur, that's really what I am. And I'm creative and I'm fearless in it. And that's how I saw my father. I would go to his place of business and clean up his business, and sometimes go to his houses and I'd clean up the houses and the hallways and stuff. So I just saw my father always making a living from what he had inside of him, not depending on anyone else. I never saw him being bossed. He was his own boss. And that was in the 40s and 50s, you know. So that's something else. Well, I wasn't born then, but he was his boss all my life.
How many siblings do you have?
How many siblings? It was 3 of us, well, 2. 2 brothers. One has passed. He worked for the Internal Revenue, one. The other one, he ran over 300 hospitals in Brooklyn, Albert and James. And those are my brothers.
Growing up in Brooklyn in that time, what was your childhood like, with your brothers? And, take us into the household. What was that like?
Well, they didn't really care for me. Later on I figured it out. They were jealous because my father wanted a daughter. And he was happy about the son, but he really wanted a daughter. And he didn't hide it. And my mother, she primmed over me. Everything. She sewed all my clothes, and my socks were matching my ribbons. It was like they were over the top before that. Maybe that's why I'm color coordinated. And I mentioned you were color coordinated. So that's, my brother's like, oh gosh, yeah, my sister. So that's how I always felt like I was a problem to them. And so we had a brownstone in Brooklyn's 4 stories. And when sometime the lights would go out in the house, and they would hide and scare me to death. Okay, so have a happy day. It was no joy. It wasn't a joyride. I was a different one in the family too. I was creative. And they were very, methodical. They had the job and security and coverage, medical coverage. And I had none of that. So I was very peculiar to them. They didn't know how I survived or how I lived or what I was doing, what's that all about. Later on, they kind of respected a little bit. And actually later on, the eldest one, he begged for me to get him out the hospital. He was in a wheelchair. He said, please get me out of here. And I said, well, only I'm going to get you out is if you have to really listen to everything I'm telling you to do, because I won't be able to take care of you and help you if you don't do what I'm telling you to do holistically. So I spoke to his doctor, his physical therapist, his nutritionalist. I spoke to 5 people and said, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm happy to take responsibility for my brother. And the day he got home and I gave him his vegan food, he says, I'm not going to eat that. I said, oh my gosh, he's not going to work with me. Now he's on me. And he had this medication. It was a whole, so I shut down all the way. And then I told my mother, like kids tell their mom, grown woman, Mom. Wow. But anyway, it was in 24 hours. He said, okay, I'm gonna listen. And in 24 hours, he was able to walk up the steps. He could only walk 1 step to get into the house, barely. And pick up his leg. And he started to think and get healthier, so.
Wait, what is it about, where do you get that, in your coming up as a young person, that you could be in the midst of people who may not understand you, may not like you, and you still stay the course, because most people will conform because they want to be liked, so a lot of times conform. But you didn't do that, you stayed the course.
I did. As you're saying that I studied the course, whether people liked me, didn't like me, whether they approved of me or not. You know what? I was so sick. So when I got well, I was like a holistic evangelist. And nobody, if somebody's an evangelist, you're not going to change them. They look at you like something wrong with you. So people would tell me, well, what you're doing is really not it. And I discovered some things, how the vegan lifestyle is unhealthy. You don't get vitamin D and all that. I said, well, get to the sunlight. Don't play. This saved my life. If you want your life to be saved, then you can join me. But if you don't, I'll see you down the road. Because at some point, you might need this, in a state of desperation. So I never wavered, because as sick as I was, the doctors, I had the top doctors. My family had money. They gave me the top everything. I had the top doctors, and I was getting sicker. I had my injections. I had my medication. I had everything. I see my doctor every other week because I had to have an injection for the asthma. And then nothing stopped my eczema from all over my body. And what about my headaches? And what about my chronic PMS? They didn't know what to do with me. And there was one time I told my mother, your daughter should live in a glass house. She's allergic to everything. Okay, so that is your answer to saving my life? I said, there's got to be something to help me. And when I found it, I became very loyal to the healing. Because if I fell off, I cleaned up so much I didn't have the craving anymore. To eat the things that were making me sick, the junk, the fast, the fried, the microwave, the flesh, I just had no more craving. And it shifted my thinking and my feelings. I thought I was just getting rid of these physical issues. It started to heal my heart and my emotions and my self-love and care all started to come together. So I couldn't be swayed.
How did, I guess you kind of answered this, but how did you become interested in the alternative health and holistic living?
How did I find the alternative? They found me. Well, first I had a girlfriend. Her name was Valkyrie. She lived across the street from me. And she was the strange one in the whole neighborhood. But we clicked. Well, 2 strange people. And she was an astrologer, a young astrologer. We were teenagers. And she wore orange almost every day in tie-dye. And she had locks down to her ankles almost. And she had wires. She did it artistically. And she had bells on her body. And we both had bags. We did a special healing together. And I ran a healing bath when I came to her house. We did prayers. And we read the Mystic Bible. And so she was my friend. And she was a vegetarian. She was the first one that I met. And I thought that was interesting, but I didn't dive into it. But she told me about this healing retreat upstate, and they're leaving from Harlem. I was locked to the house, but I had to stay on the stoop. I didn't go around the corner. That's how my family dealt with me. But somehow I got a chance to go on that healing retreat that I opened up Heal Thyself book to talk about. And one of the greatest healers of all time to me was Dr. Johnny Moore. He told me about herbs Everybody went to see him. He was on 125th Street and 5th in Harlem. So much happened in Harlem. Between Alvin Ailey School of Dance and herbology classes, and it was a place called Aquarius. That's where all the books of metaphysics was there, and the great minds of our community was there. They sold books and they had workshops, and I went there a lot, and that's what got me deep into the healing.
What are three experiences? Let's start with one. What is an experience that influenced the person that you are today? What is a life experience that?
What influenced me? A lot of things influenced me.
Pick a couple. Tell us about a couple. Pick one, and then
One
we'll
of
go.
them, I'm going to pick one. Well, when I was 15 or 16, I had a dance company. I don't know how I formed a dance company that day, but I formed a dance company. And it was a I don't remember the name of it. But we did creative dance, we did Afro dance. We made our own outfits, and we did our bells on our ankles and on our waists, and I had the drummers. I think I was the same person then I am now. I always had groups and gather people together, but it was around art. And so even in holistic health, I look at it as healing art. That is a creative energy. And so I bring the dance and the singing. I was singing at a drop of a dime. I was with a doo-wop group. I wasn't trying to become a healer. I wanted to be an artist. I was so sick, and when I got to the healing, I said, oh my gosh, I got caught up in the rapture, and I just kept going to the healing. But I brought my dance with me, and I brought the singing with me, and I brought the acting with me. I took acting classes with what we call the demigods, and I studied with. You had to audition to get into the company, and they let me. And they said, "Well, she has raw talent." And I remember when I did my audition, and what they put me through. Like it was like fierce. Everyone in there was just fierce. The women were over the top. They were aggressive, in your face, snap you out of existence. And I'm like this little brownstone, like scared of my own shadow. But they toughened me up. But I was with those artists, and that's what I really want to be. And I am an artist. I'm an artist of healing. Still, I think that is what inspires me the most. And some of my closest people who are to me are artists. We're always singing and dancing, and that keeps me vibrant. Actually, keeps me what people call young and a mature body. It's the art. So.
There's a song by Music Soul Child called Love.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
you did the song?
No, I know. I said I love the song. I just love when I sing it. It's inspiring to me. Sometimes I hear it and it just touched my heart.
Can I hear it a little bit?
Well, no, I was about to ask you. Is there a song like that for you?
Yes, and everybody knows the song.
What's it? But how does it start?
The Creator has a master plan.
By who?
By Ferris Saunders.
Yeah. How does it go?
The Creator has a master plan. Peace and happiness throughout the land. The Creator has but one demand. Peace and happiness throughout the land. That was the song of the 60s for the culturalists and the freedom fighters. So that song carried us all the way through. And I actually played almost every day.
I know.
And everybody knows.
But tell why is that? What is it about that song that speaks to you?
Well, because I saw suffering. I saw, coming up in the 60s, I was actually 9 years old when my parents took me to Washington, D.C. to listen to Martin Luther King. I Have a Dream, and maybe a million people was out there. Where the water is, it's this big pond of water. He was all the way, on the podium, monument, and me and my mother and my father were there. And they had umbrellas, and I was in between them, but they were protecting me to the rain. I remember it. I didn't remember here. I just remember this voice, this bellowing voice. I knew all these people around, and I was just playing in the mud. But I know that what he was saying penetrated my soul. And so I came up with his talk. I came up with his philosophy. Nonviolence. I'm not a violent person. I want peace. I want us to be at peace. I don't want us to be broken. I also came with Malcolm X. And he was, they call him militant. He was one of the most peaceful people, but he would fight for what was right. I came up with Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey really came up with my father. So those three men particularly were the ones that impacted my thinking. So when I think about where I heard that music, I heard it in my neighborhood. This Muslim brother, he was so pleasant, so peaceful. And I would go into his shop and he was playing it. He'd always have the speaker outside his shop, right on St. John's and New York Avenue. And I would go there just look at the Calvin shows. I had no money. I would go there look at the dashikis. Flip to the same dashikis I saw every single day. I would see Angela Davis, a picture of her on the wall, and marvel at the picture in black and white, and Martin and Malcolm and Marcus, and they were all there. And I know they were all talking to me through that song that there is a plan for our freedom. There's been a lynching here in LA, a black man. We have millions of our men and women, fathers and sons, daughters who are in prison now, and they are paying with their own lives again as if we're on a plantation. It's modern day Jim Crow. And then what happens to all of our young people being shot and killed in the street, and there's no justice? We go through the justice system, and everybody gets away with it. I mean, she's in her bed, and someone comes into the house and shoots her in the bed, and that's okay, and they get away with it. So it keeps me saying the Creator has a plan for us, and we're going to get out of this. These are all traps. And I also see the trap of trap music. It's actual trap music. It keeps you in this trap of sickness and violence and self-abuse and abuse to your family. And then there's trap queens. I looked up the trap queens. I said, whoa, I'm with the freedom queens, the liberation queens. And we got trap queens and trap kings. And I remember one of the buddies says, I am the trap king. And he's proud because he's ignorant. He don't know any better. You know, nobody taught him. His father wasn't there, or his uncle. There was nobody there to teach him how to be yourself and how to be whole. So I see all the injustice, and I'm a healer, and I know that I have part of the plan for our freedom. I know it. I've seen it.
So I'm going to show you a photo. So you can go back to this time. Do you remember her?
Yes, I do.
Tell me.
I was on my way to Ghana shortly after that. My spiritual godmother, Empress Okweke, she said you have to go there with a certain look. And so she was just like preparing me and telling me about the culture there. Because I was going to live, I wasn't coming back. One time I was on the radio, who let me. It was around that time I was on the radio, and this doctor, I was talking about how to get rid of pain holistically and naturally. And he got on and was belligerent, and he said, you can't get rid of pain. I'm a medical doctor, and you cannot get rid of pain from what she's talking about, foods and herbs. And I said, but people are getting rid of pain through those ways. And shortly after that, I started preparing myself to go to the motherland. You know, and I did pack up, and I packed everything. I didn't pack my children. I said, I'm going to come back for you. Let me just get myself situated. And I was there for some months, but I couldn't stay. I had to come back. And I later on realized why I had to come back. I had to write the books. You're my village here. That's really what it is. I learned, they have to, who's your people? You're my people. Those are my people there too. But when I look at you and I hear what you're saying, I know what you think, I know what you feel, because we have some of the same ways and cultural practices and attitudes, so we understand each other in a different way. They look at me as African American. You have money. You got a plane. You got a hotel. So, sometimes it's a big dollar sign, but I still wanted to go home. I'm going to go home again.
So when she came back, what made you? Because when I look at the picture, I see you here sitting at the desk. I don't know if you, and then you got the sign, Heal Thyself with Queen Afua.
Well, I actually, that's so much was around that time. That was in my family's home. I was doing consultation. And I just took this home. I met a client. I've seen clients in that space. Colonics and steam work and herbs. And he said, I want you to come to Ghana and you're gonna help set up a healing village. And so it was around that time. So I packed my sign, my clothes, my colonic unit, my giant steam cabinet, all my herbs, and I left to go home.
Now, so at that time you were an entrepreneur. What's your biggest joy at that time?
Biggest what?
Joy, the joy of your life at that time. What's your joy?
Dance class.
Yeah. Gotcha.
No, so that was the biggest joy. If I took a Dunham class, I do Dunham today.
Yeah.
Everything is a bar. Everything is a bar, and the stretching. I think you came to one of the classes. I think you Supernova. I think I grabbed the Nubian thugs. I made y'all come to class with me. Okay, so that's right.
Yeah.
That gives me a lot of joy. Music, I live for music. Music gets me up, music gets me going, music calms my spirit, music gives me vision. I love music, and that's a part of culture because as a culture that was stolen from us, we use dance, we use song, we use acting, we use colors, we use garments, that was our medicine, that was part of our medicine, that was our ritual, that was our culture, that was our ceremony.
That's the art.
That's the art, that is the art. But we take art and we sometimes separate art like art is over here. But art is a part of the culture. It's one. So when you put your clothes on, that's really the art of the culture. What you're eating, what medicine you use, it's the culture. I said, when I started to study the original holistic practices and studying holistic practice of this time now, I realized that all holistic health is African natural lifestyle. It all led me back to Kemet. Reiki, African natural lifestyle. I also never had Reiki masters. Herbology, African natural lifestyle, color therapy, hydrotherapy, yoga, meditation. It's all African natural lifestyle. It's all my culture. And so they separate that. That's separated. That's not interconnected. So my vision is to bring it all into how we live. It's the way of life.
Gotcha. And so, there are a lot of women out here. They say the number one leading entrepreneurs at this time are Black women, are women, and women in general. And you being an entrepreneur all these years, you've overcome a lot. What are some of the biggest concerns at this time when you look at that picture? When you were, not who you are today, but looking back then, what were some of the biggest concerns you had?
I had 3 little children, and I was classified as a single parent. I never believed in a single parent. I said, you're not a single parent, because if you have family members, you have close friends, we're all raising the children. So we're in a village, and that's why my children call people, my friends, auntie, because they accepted that.
Well, yeah, that's our way. Yeah.
That's how we survive. We're not locked in a box. But that was the challenging time. But also that's the time that gave me greatest strength. I remember one time I was asking, when you're separating in relationships, sometimes people won't do things just because they're angry at you. But I said, but it's the children. I always said, but the children, they need to support the children. And after I said the children enough and it didn't get the help from the father, I said, oh, this is my responsibility. I am to take care of them. I gotta go to work. At least I'm gonna go do work that I love. I love to help my people. And I'll tell my children, and my children, Nova talks about now, in his 40s. He said, "Ma, they could have put you away. You made us work. You had me by picking up supplies and stuff."
Right. It was the promotion department.
It was, flyers. I would tell them, I said, "Now listen, children. Now they're 5, 7, and 10. Listen, you know, mother has to work. We all have to work together. That's our culture, that we work together. And if you want to eat this healthy food, we have to work together. If you want these treats, you have to. If you want to take a vacation, you're going to go to private school. If you want to take dance classes, if whatever you want to do, you can do it. But we have to work together." And that was the orientation.
Right.
But that was the like scariest time, and then that was an abusive relationship. So I think he just had to run me out of that relationship, and I'm glad that he did run me out. Some people stay; they stay in an abusive relationship and become their norm. But I didn't see that with my mother and father. They argued, but they didn't ever fight physical, and so that was not for me to stay.
What gave you the courage to go? Like you said, some people stay because they're afraid, you know?
Well, I stayed because I was afraid to. I went to that too. But I said, if I stay here, I might not survive. And if I don't live, then I can't take care of my children at all. I have to live. And then my 3-year-old daughter, she told me, she said, "Ma, we have to go." If a little somebody at 3 years old said, "We got to go be with grandmother," I mean, I think you better listen because it's that loud. Right? So that's really, you know, I moved on.
Just a few more. The next one is today. So you overcame those things, right? You overcame. What is your greatest fears and joys today? Are they still the same? Or?
No, because the children grown, but no, they still got they grow with that grown people's problems.
Okay, got
and
it.
I take it on. I still take it on.
Yeah.
But I take everybody's problems.
Yeah.
Actually. It's just because I feel responsible. My father raised me to feel responsible.
Yeah.
So if my people are in pain, I'm not going to be in pain, but I'm going to see how can we get out of it. So then I'll do classes and workshops and seminars and private work. What can I do to help us to overcome our pain and our grief and our trauma? In terms of my greatest joy,
In this time.
well, I do healing every day. That's the great joy of my life, that I do healing every day. And that I can heal. I do womb yoga dance. And right now I'm doing a super womb yoga dance because it's about to be recorded. And I'm working on a book project, which my daughter encouraged me to do a yoga book, womb yoga dance. So I know it's a big lift, but I'm willing to do it. I've been doing this practice for 20-some years. And I know it has to be put into a form that people can really study and practice. And some of those movements were done in Sacred Woman. It was 25, but it has morphed into 108, which is the number for global transformation. So people have to see, when people see it, they're transformed and transfixed. The women want it. So since it's a technique that I've developed that continues to keep me in a state of longevity and vitality, I want others to have that experience. And it's because like even this morning, I've been doing the last 3 days, and I've been gotten up like I'm writing a book. I'm just doing the poses, but I'm stretching and I'm breathing and I'm elongating. But I'm also remembering my dance teacher, Obadiah, who taught at Alvin Ailey's. And then I'm remembering Bobby Shine, who taught African culture and danced at the United Nations, performed there. And they would both have the same principle, one ballet and the other one's African cultural dance. And it was always about lengthening the body beyond your hands. That's like stretch yourself beyond this box that you're in. Stretch yourself into a deeper place of healing, maybe a place you've never been before. So I just take the dance and I take my life and I keep stretching deeper into my healing, and that is the healing is what saves me every single time.
What do you hope to happen with the Sacred Woman book? This next, when you add the expanded.
With the anniversary book, after 20 years.
Yes.
So this, by the time the book comes out, it will be 21 years old. And wow, everyone is gravitating to this book these last, really, I would say 2 years. social media. Thank you, Kazi, for being devoted to the social media. And that way, because that opened the way. And Ali communicating with you and knowing what you needed. That once I got connected to social media and that you don't have to just talk to people in the room. That took a lot because I only wanted to talk to people in the room. Come to where I am. That's where I want to teach. But I had to grow and expand. And it's great because people from around the world are part of it now. And so with the book, the anniversary book coming out, everybody's going to buy that book again. If nothing else, that last chapter. And that is Meshkinet, living your purpose. And that's what women are craving, to live by, why they came on this planet to live it out. And I've tapped in and I've helped them to birth their purpose in that chapter. So I expect it will go, well, it's already global. There'll be, but what I've been seeing is women having more courage to study it and not be afraid of the book. Because, we're told that we're doing witchcraft, which is not, we're doing natural healing. Just like you go get plants out the garden, you put some spinach. It has medicine, celery, no for the nerves, beets for the blood, turnips for the bones, chamomile for the nervous system. That's not juju. That's natural. And so there'll be more who will not be afraid. We've been told lies so that we would not empower ourselves and keep us imprisoned to sickness and disease. So I'm excited because we have so much support. We have support from a lot of artists, which I didn't even know that artists was even paying attention to the book. And they're saying it out loud now. The virus pulled everybody out. It's like, they're not embarrassed, they're not ashamed. They said, I got the book, it saved my life, I've been doing this work. I said, wow, really? Good thanks. So it's I cannot even imagine. I have a vision, yes I can. I have a global vision. And that global vision is that we're going to, just like diseases everywhere, and it's everywhere, people can't talk to each other close, cover yourself up. Matter of fact, don't just cover your mouth, cover your nose. That means your internal is so toxic to each other that if we breathe on each other or we share the same air without, that we're going to poison each other and we walk away and the elevators are most stressful. I want you to get in a corner somewhere like, I got to go, well that's okay, you go down, you go ahead, I'll wait until the elevator comes back and there's nobody in it and we got to be 6 feet away because we're so toxic. But I used to tell people, I said, now listen, the women they start cleansing and to the men, I said, when you cleanse, don't get intimate unless your mate is clean. Without dead things and dead food and toxic conversation. Clean them up, clean her up. Because you go into each other, you're going to spread poison. You're going to hurt each other. But now they're all saying what I was saying. But it's gotten so deep. Forget about getting into each other's body. You can't even have the breath on you. Some people say, Miss, cover your nose. I want to breathe. So Miss, you have to cover your nose. I said, okay, no, we're okay. Okay. Fast and pray, clean up, and you won't have all that toxicity, period. But this is the frequency that we're on right now.
I think about, this is my last question. I think about what you said, like with social media, the book has a life of its own. I'm seeing people that's inboxing you from, Africa, the UK. So there are more people that know you than you know them. They're like, so there's thousands of people who have had this book and have people passed it on and talking about it. So there are a lot of people who just know you through social media. Mm-hmm. So what is something that all of those people who just know you from the book as the author, they know you from social media, what is you share that they may be surprised to know about the healer that's known as Queen Afua?
Wow. I need a moment to think about that. What do they need to? What do you need to know?
Or what would they be surprised to know about you?
That I have two distinct personalities.
Tell me about that.
Well, I'm extremely quiet. I'm very in. And I won't say anything. I just look at people. And people laugh because I said, right? Because that's my internal quiet side. And then I'm all the way out, all the way live. Those are two extremes. Somebody could get a little shocked and nervous. So those two extremes, and they function well, and they respect each other inside of me. And I teach that in Sacred Woman. It's okay to have many aspects of yourself and not to suppress yourself. You don't have to be just one way or another way. Sacred Woman, you're doing all these different parts of your spiritual anatomy. So Sacred may fire, that may have you all the way live, and Ma'at may have you all the way still and quiet. And it's okay. And then Tahuti may have you talking a lot, or Tahuti may put you in this total silence so you can really reflect what you need to change. So it's medicine to be able to be versatile with who you are. So I think those two extreme persons, like characters, that I observe. Like there's a higher soul watching them be so different. And I still feel a little uncomfortable being quiet sometimes because people want me to be on. And they said, Queen, come on. And I said, okay. They said, be on all the time. So.
That was good.
All right.